All right, so we're going to go ahead and just get started here. And basically what we're going to do today is, last week we covered APIs, how to make an API that'll actually basically integrate the one that we made to get all the temperatures and stuff into the app. And then also we made one that would push new temperatures when people recorded them into the database. So today we're just going to finish up getting that one working, and then we're actually going to start making the app a real app, not just a mobile website. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And the first thing that we'll do is, again, just I'm actually working from my work laptop here. So I'm going to get the code the same way you all can get the code, which is go to the Google Plus page for last week. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'll post a link to the one from last week on the page from this week. So just go to the page from this week, and I'll go ahead and post the one from last week, which has the login information on there. Let me open up. Actually, I think it's session 5. All right. So this is the login information that you can use for your FileZilla. And again, if you don't have FileZilla, just go ahead and get that. So you should now, I guess if you refresh the event page for this week, you should see this information here. So basically what you do is you just go ahead and, if you sat in on session 5, if you already went through that, you should already have this set up in your FileZilla, and you can just drop down the site manager and just choose the site that you put in before. But if you don't have that, you can just click on the icon, create a new site, let's say mobile crash course, put in the that weird address up in the host, change the login type to normal, and then here you'll put mobile 102 for the user and enter into with a 3 and a capital I into the username and password. So, and then this week, basically go into my folder, go into the David folder, and just go ahead and, so I'm going to go ahead and create a folder on my desktop here. If you already have a folder where you're keeping your code, although it's probably best just to go ahead and create a new folder. Let's say mobile 102 session 7, and just literally like select all the files. You can click on one and press Control A to select all of them, and then you can just drag them right out into that folder. Like just click and drag them over, and you'll see that then you can actually see down here how the files are moving over. They will download all the latest copy of the code right over into your folder. And you'll notice that actually that number goes up as it goes into subfolders and it finds more. So Betty, you got that going on your end? Okay, great. All right, so now if you open that folder, actually, let me just go ahead and show, in case anybody missed last week's, what you can do now is just go to, it's trek, T-R-E-K, software.org/mobile102/David. Actually, let me double check that. No, it wasn't mobile 102. Hang on here. Let me see. Mobile crash course. Thanks. And then do a /David on the end of that. And now what you can actually do is go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and press F12 and make it look like a phone. But what you can do is actually, without submitting anything, just go ahead and press View Graph, and you'll see that it's pulling all that data from the database. So what you see on your screen is exactly what I see on my screen because it's pulling from the database. And just to prove that I didn't hard code that, what I'm going to also do is log into the database. Hang on here. A phone. Okay, so yeah, the question is there a specific way to open it to look like a phone? When did you open it in Chrome? Press F12. And then right over here, you see that little arrow and the 3 lines. That should be blue. If it isn't blue, click on that. And then you see this little phone icon over here. Click on that to make that blue. And if that doesn't do it, just down here, there's a bar that you can drag up. And here's where you can select what phone you want it to look like. Does that work for you? And then also once you do that, just refresh the page so that it looks correctly. So what I'm going to do here is just go into past events and pull up the database. I think actually if you just go to my Google Plus page, you can get back to the past events if you're interested, but you don't have to do that for now. I'm just going to go ahead and log in and put in. Let's put in today. It started out like 50 degrees, but then it got up to almost 90. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick insert. Say 90. Go. So now you can see in the database we have a temperature here for 90. Oops. You know what? Okay, so now if you go back to your app, if all of you refresh your pages, oops, actually you will have to go back home and click View Graph. See that little uptick at the end? That's because it's pulling it live from the database. So that is one of the really neat things about the fact that we're now using an API. So what I was working on right at the end of the last week's session was adding an API to also submit a temperature. And we ran into some problems, so I said, all right, let's postpone it to next week. And I'll also just take the opportunity in the meantime to, I'm going to always open this up with Notepad++ to show you what we did to get the temperatures. Basically, there's this Ajax command, and what Ajax does is it says, okay, go to get temps.php was the API file that we made. I can pull that up here. Just a very simple file. We all made this in session 5, where we just said, hey, get me all the temperatures and output them. And basically we say, okay, go to that URL. And in fact, what I can just show you just to help make sense of this, get temps.php. When it goes to that URL, it comes back. Oh, and see, I have a formatter, but it comes back with some data that looks like this. And it says, okay, we're expecting data in that type. JSON is what that looks like with those curly braces and stuff. Post is the way it's getting it. For now, just know that you always do post. And it says, okay, whenever you come back, call this function. So the code doesn't get stuck there waiting for it to come back. It after it calls this Ajax command, it just keeps on going. And so the user doesn't experience any type of delay or freeze or so forth. And whenever the server comes back and says, well, here's everything from the database, it goes ahead and it calls this function right here. And data contains all of that, all of this data that we saw on the screen here. So then what we did was we said, okay, for each row of data, we have all these different objects of data. For each one of them, basically this does a loop. And it says, take the temperature and take the label and call the record temp function on it. And so then record temp actually then took that data and it pushed it into our local variables, which made it show up as the graph. So now what we were working on is at the end is to say, okay, now we want to actually post temperatures when you record them. And we ran into some problems, so we're just going to troubleshoot that here. And I think it's helpful also, even though I think it will be helpful just to see the process of troubleshooting. It's very rare that you're going to just like put in some code and it works perfectly. At least for me. For my dad, that's the way it happens. For me, not so much. But so yeah, so let's say we already wired up our code such that it should work. And we basically, you can see here in the code that we said, okay, when you're done calling this post temp API, and I'll go ahead and pull that up. You can open that if you'd like. It's right out in the main section of the code, post temp.php. You can see that now we are basically we're getting the temperature and the date that the app passed to the API. So just going back here to our JavaScript, you can see that when we call this post temp API, we're saying we're going to post a temperature to the database. We pass it a temperature and a date, which were variables passed in from the HTML. So let me just back up. I think I'm going too fast.
That's whatever you enter, right?
Exactly. So what I did last week was I changed the submit button here to say that okay, so we left this function the same. You know, when someone hits submit, it calls the record temp function, but we changed what that function does. Basically, it says unless the user said only save this temperature locally, so unless this variable actually exists, if it does not exist, so if local only is undefined, if they didn't pass that in, then we're going to call this the post temp function with the temperature that the user passed to us from the box, as well as the current date and time formatted with, you know, we added these dashes and stuff just to make it the right format for the database. So now what we do is you can see that post temp calls the post temp API. It doesn't have to be the same name, it just to make it easy. And what that does is it says, okay, get me that temperature, get me that date that the user's passing to me, and just go ahead, echo just means print it out. And the reason we do this is just to make sure that, just for the sake of debugging, we just wanted to make sure that we're actually passing it the right thing and it's picking it up. Okay, so the question is, when it prints it out, does that put in the graph? So the answer is no. That happens right down. That should happen right down here. So remember when we were back, I think session 4, talking about the SQL queries, and maybe this was also session 5. We talked about how you use the insert into commands. So right here, we're running some SQL code to say insert into the table David D in this case, the values of whatever is stored in $T and $D. And again, we're using these periods to sort of take the actual values of the variables and add them to the string, because the string is just text. So if we didn't have, if we just did this, it would say, oh, you want to insert $T into David? We can put $T into that. So what we actually have to do is we have to say, no, 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 no. We're not talking about $T. We're talking about the variable $T. So we sort of say, stop the string, put the code in, and then start the string again. And we just sort of combine it all together. So now what we got to figure out is, okay, and then you can see that in our JavaScript, we say if it comes back successfully, go ahead and do an alert, a pop-up with whatever data the API printed out. And in this case, you can see it printed out 50, which was our temperature, and then 2014-9-15 in the time. And so I'll say, okay, just looking at the database, everything looks right, except that I think the month has to have a padded 0. It doesn't like the fact that it's just 9, not 09. So I actually ran into this in the past, and again, this is one of the nice things about using a common language like HTML or JavaScript. You can just say, hey, JavaScript for padding zeros. And here's, pad a number with leading zeros in JavaScript. And here's a person who made a function that does exactly that for us. So this is one of the really neat things about having so many people out there doing the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and post that function into the chat over here so y'all can copy that. So if you refresh the page, you should see that there. Got it? Oh yeah, and anybody online, please go ahead and post any questions that you have, or go ahead and send me an email if that's not working, because last week somebody posted a question, I did not see it. So you got the code there. So now go down to line 76 here, all the way at the bottom of the main.js file. Just go ahead and paste that in there. Now, on so 76, just all the way at the bottom of the file there, sorry. So now what we can do, basically this function, n is the number that you want to add the padding to if necessary, right? Because if the month is October like it is now, then we don't want to add a 0, right? We only want to add a 0 if the number is a single digit. So this function handles all of that, and it does it in a pretty complicated way. You don't need to understand how it does it. But basically, n is the number that you want to add padding to if necessary. Width says, well, how wide do you want this number to be? In our case, 2 digits. And then the third thing, z, is, well, what character do you want to use for padding? In our case, we want to use 0. So all we have to do now is come up here. The month was the problem. The year is always going to be 4 digits. Actually, the date we also have to add padding to. And now all we have to do is just say pad. The number is the month. 2 is the number of digits we want, and 0 is the character that we want to do padding with. And we'll just do the exact same thing to the day. We just say pad the day. We want it to be 2 digits, and we want to pad with zeros. And just let me know when you got that. And again, for anybody following along online who does not have FileZilla yet, you should go ahead and get it, because we're going to use that for actually uploading the code to the web and making it work. Yep. Got it? All right, let me actually I just got a text, so let me just make sure that's not a question. All right, so now I will go ahead and save that file. Go back to your FileZilla. Go ahead and navigate to wherever your code is. In this case, if it's all the way out in the C folder, you'll open up C, users, whatever your username is, and then desktop, and that'll be where you're familiar with. But I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And the file we edited was main.js, so all you have to do now, to have your own copy of the code, actually out here, just double click on the 2 dots to go up one folder, and then go into your own folder. And then what you should do is to go into your own folder, and then, hey, Stephen, over on the left-hand side, just click on one of the files and do a Control-A to select all of them, and then drag them all over so that you'll get the latest copy of the code in your folder. And when they ask you about whether you want to overwrite, check the box that says always use this action and say OK. And you'll see over here that says that there's 130 some files that now need to upload. You got it? So hopefully it goes quickly. Usually these are pretty small files, so it shouldn't take long, but it's going slow right now. How many files are you at over there? Okay. So we'll just let all these files update. And while these are updating, I actually had somebody email me a few questions that I'll just go ahead and quickly cover now. Let's see here. Okay, no, this was the chat. Okay. Here's the question. So first off, how would you set up the database for multiple users, different tables per user, or you just add a user ID field in the big table? Yeah, so the way I do that, in fact, I can actually just go ahead and show you how we do it for Scoutlet. I think this is, I always learn best by example, so hopefully this will make sense of it. Let's see if this comes up. See, it's going to be slow. What's that? Okay. All right. So you know what? This is taking too long. Basically, what we do with Scoutlet is we have a separate table for users. And there is a user ID which is unique. So every user that signs up, we just go 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And then we just store however much information we want about the users. So at a minimum, and this answers your question, how is authentication done safely, how to handle encrypting and decrypting user passwords. Let me just go over here and show you something. They have, in MySQL, they have a function called SHA-1. And what SHA-1 does is it encrypts the user password. So what we will do is we'll say when someone registers on our site and they type in, my password 101, we run this encryption called SHA-1, which takes that and it jumbles it up in a way such that we are not able to know what their password is. It's considered shady and bad practice for you to actually store the user passwords in a way that you can know. So we scramble them up in this way such that we wouldn't be able to tell what it was originally. And then what we do is that the next time somebody logs in, we run a query in our database and we say select star from user where email equals whatever email they gave us and password equals this SHA-1 encrypted form of whatever they just typed in. So we still don't know what it is, but when we run SHA-1 on their password, it will match when we ran SHA-1 on it before. And the reason that we can't reverse engineer what their password is because the same scrambled version could correspond to multiple original versions. So you can't tell what it was. So that answers those questions. And then what happens when there's no network connection, you can't connect to the database? Any local storage that saves what you did and then syncs to the database when there's no connection? Yes. So on Scoutlet, what we do is that obviously the first time someone registers, you have to have internet. Well, actually, you don't have to. And in fact, in Scoutlet, we don't require that. So when someone registers, you could save their username and password locally on the device. And then if they don't have internet, you can just check first on the local database on the phone to say, okay, I know I don't have all the users in the service here, but has this, with the email and password they just entered, do I have that saved on the phone? If you do, you know that they're good and you let them in. Otherwise, you say, hey, try connecting to the internet first and then see if you can get in.
So you
You wouldn't be able to log in as a user who's never logged in before, right? And then we just, as they do stuff while they don't have internet, we just save it on the phone. And then whenever they do have internet, we then upload that to the online database. And this is actually very tricky with Scoutlet. We allow them to make changes on both the website and the phone. So when we do the sync, we have to say, well, okay, which change was made later? So like if I change Taplin's name number to 35 on the phone, and then I go on the website and change it to 34, how do I know which one it should be? Well, we look at the timestamp. When was it changed? You also run into some funny problems when you handle deleting things. Because if you delete something on the phone, well, you see that there's something on the website and you see that there's not something on the phone. Does that mean that they created it on the website, or does that mean they deleted it on the phone? So the way we've handled that is that we've not actually deleted anything. We have a field that's 1 or 0 marking whether it's active or not active. So that's how we've handled that. It is very tricky. All right, so all my files are uploaded now. Hopefully yours are too. So now we can go ahead and go back to temp tracker here and refresh the page. Again, I just pressed F5 to refresh it. You can also click the refresh button. And let's say, let's put in this morning's temperature at 50. And you can see now, look at that 09 there. So it's correctly working. And now if we view the graph, you see how it dips back down to 50. The real test, though, is if we refresh the page, that should still be there. If we refresh the page and it's not there, it means it didn't go into the database. Oh, and again, we have to go back home and click view graph and see it did not stay there. So we've got to see what's going on. So what we're going to do is go back over here to our post temp, and instead of echoing the individual variables, we're just going to go ahead and copy all of this code here for the SQL query, and we're going to say, hey, go ahead and print that out. What this allows us to do is this allows us to then go and copy that text into the online database. Oh, and I already see what the problem is. Do you see it? Okay, so the problem is that, let me show you something. The label is a timestamp, and so we have to put quotes around it to mark that it's a string, not numbers. So that is the problem. So anyway, what we need to do is put single quotes here, because if we put double quotes there, it would close out the string. But one of the new things with both PHP and HTML is that within double quotes, you can put single quotes, and it's not going to close out the string. And there are some subtle differences between whether you should have single quotes or double quotes on the outside, but in general, you can do whichever you like. But just know that you can alternate them, and they're not going to close each other out. So in this case, this single quote is actually part of the string. Now, if I did really need to have a double quote, I could put a double quote and put a backslash in front of it. And basically what a backslash does is it says, okay, whatever character comes next, count it as a string all the time. Don't do whatever that character would normally do. So it will do things like, well, actually, if I did backslash n, it'll do like a new line, and there's some different special things that a backslash does. But in this case, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to use single quotes. So go ahead and make that change to your post temp file. Save it. Go back to FileZilla, and now all you have to do is just double click on post temp and it'll upload and replace it. And now is the, as they say, the moment of truth. Go back home, refresh the page. Let's go ahead and put in let's put in New Jersey temperatures here. Let's do 45. Submit. Notice that the page is coming up blank because we're not doing echoing anymore. View the graph, and yep, sure enough, it's dipping down. That's good. And now again, we're going to refresh and see if it actually went in. Oh, and we're going to have to go back home and view graph. Ah, there it is. Finally. And in fact, just to make sure, I'm going to go to the database. And there it is. Now notice one mistake though. It put the month as 9/15, not 10/15 like it should have. And the reason for that is because, and if you were curious, you could look up the JavaScript date object and say, wait a minute, why is it doing this? You'll see that it's actually numbering the months 0 through 11. So all we have to do is go into our code. We wanted to edit the main.js file anyway to get rid of that alert. We don't want it to put a pop-up when it's done. And then up here, we're going to say current date.getMonth +1. That way when it's 0, it'll be 1 and so forth. And that's good. So just make those two changes. Let me know if you forget what I did down there. Yep, delete the alert in the done function. Unless you want to have an alert that says, date submitted, you can do that if you want. And then you're going to add 1 to the get month just to correct for that 0 to 11 issue. Save it. Go back to FileZilla, upload main.js. Go back to your code, and remember, if you want to get to your thing instead of mine, you'll just change David to whatever your folder's name is. In your case, Heisler. Oops. Oh man, I just put in nothing. Oh, and actually this is wrong. I need to refresh it. Let me see, did it? Okay, good. So now you can see I just put in those 3 really low temperatures, and I refresh it, and they're all still there. Go back home, refresh it, view graph, they're all still there. Is it working for you? So, I mean, one thing that I would do is right now it's not really nice, the fact that I put in a temperature and hit submit and nothing happens. So, I mean, one thing that's kind of maybe nice to do is just, if we go back to our HTML file, just go ahead and open index.html. After we call record temp, in the main code folder, there should be an index.html. And just remember, you're going to right click on it and open it with Notepad++. Otherwise, it'll open with Chrome or whatever. So here, remember, we selected that input box and we got the value of it. Now what we want to do is maybe just set it back to blank. So if you wanted to put in a bunch of temperatures, you don't have to keep backspacing when you just put in. So after we do this record temp function here, just go ahead and copy everything from the $sign here over to that parentheses after val. Just copy that. and then click to the right of that semicolon there, and go ahead and paste that. And now inside .val, put 2 single quotes. What that'll do is it'll say, when you put in a parameter there, in this case, just an empty string, it'll say the value of that input box to that. Versus if you don't have anything in there, it's going to say, well, get the current value. When you put something in there, it says set the current value to that. And in this case, we're saying, hey, set it to be nothing, set it to be empty. So let me know when you got that. Yep. So that's the same key on your keyboard that has the double quotes. If you don't do shift, it has the single quote. And again, I'll leave this up for a while so those online can double check your syntax. This kind of tricky. So we've got that good, and that's an extra parentheses. So just get rid of that. All right. So now we'll go back to FileZilla and just double click on index.html to upload that to our server. And now when we go to the app, and again, we'll just refresh the page here. Now if I go ahead and let's just say we have a blitheringly hot day, I'm going to say submit, and poof, it goes away when I'm done. And so then I can say, well, then we had an even worse day, and submit again. And then it went totally the opposite direction. And then I view the graph and I'm like, whoa, what went on there? All right, so now we have a completely working app. This to record temperatures, and then from any device, anywhere, get on and see what we've tracked over time. Now, obviously, there's lots of ways that we can enhance this, make it such that you can edit points and delete points and all that. But for now, we're just gonna just stick with this as an example. And I'm gonna get into now, how do you actually get this on your phone and up on the App Store? Now, the simplest way of doing this is go to a website. It's called build.phonegap.com. And what this does, the normal way to get the PhoneGap to actually compile it to an app is to install like Eclipse and Android, or on your Mac install Objective-C and Xcode, or on your Windows install that environment, and then run some things in the command line, and it basically makes projects for each of those different things that you can then import into Xcode or Eclipse. These are the different programs you use to make native apps. And then you use the same process that you use to make native apps to compile, like they basically give you all the code for it, and you run it the same way you would normally. But what this site does is it just makes it super easy. They say, hey, zip up all your code in a zip file, upload it to us, and then we'll just be like, here you go, here you go, here you go, for each of the different platforms. So if you don't have an account, just go ahead and click register. You can choose to a completely free account. And in this case, I already have an account, but if you don't have one, you can go ahead and create one. And by the way, let me just also show you guys something that now that you know some code will help you with something that I found very annoying. So a lot of websites try to make you dishonestly say, I have read and agreed to this terms of use, right? If I just check this, I would be lying right now, because obviously I've not read their terms of use and I don't agree to them. So one really neat thing that you can do is, so imagine if this was a paper agreement, I could take a pen and I could cross out I've read and agreed, and I could say, no, I haven't, but I'll, whatever. I can modify the agreement that I'm signing. Well, you can actually do that now with HTML. You can right click on it, inspect element. I got to get out of my phone mode. And now in, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. So you can actually right click on pieces of a website and you can say inspect element, and it'll bring up the code for that website. And by the way, this is a really useful feature if you're like, hey, how did they do that? You can just, you press F12 to get in the development mode. You right click on like, oh, this is a really neat button. Like, how did they do that button? Inspect element, and they'll show you the code for it. They'll show you the HTML, and if I drag it up, they'll also show you over here the CSS code that they use to format it. But in this case, I want to, you know, change the agreement that I'm agreeing to so that I can, you know, honestly agree to this. And all you have to do is double click in the code, say I have not read, and agreed to the terms of use and privacy policy. And I can definitely say I have not read and agreed to them, and now I can continue. Anyway, that has made my life so much easier. Because before, you know, I'm not going to lie and say that I've read and agreed to something I haven't. Now, I already had an existing app in here. You wouldn't. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into here and delete this. So when you sign in, you're going to see something like this. So let me just pause here. And again, if you're online, go ahead and post a question or email me, and let me just see if I can. So what you're going to do is you're going to now click on the, oops, hang on here. Oh, perfect. Click on private. And over here, it's going to say upload a zip file. Now, before we do that, we first have to go ahead and create a zip file. Now, what we have to do to get this to work is we first have to get, they have a few files that have to go with this that will actually make this work as an app. So what we're going to first do is up at the top here, click on Docs. And then here it says getting started with build. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And perfect. It says, well, what do I upload? So what they're saying here is that all you have to do is copy this line of code here into your index.html file. So that's easy enough. We go in there, copy that into our HTML file. Now, note here that they say PhoneGap build supports a configuration XML file called config.xml, and this configuration file allows you to modify things like the title, icon, splash screen, and other properties. So I'm not going to, well, we'll see. I might cover this next session. Yeah, next session we'll get into this. Basically, if you click on this link, they have a certain style of file here, no rhyme intended, that allows you to specify what the icon should be in the App Store and on the person's phone, and some other more complicated things. But today we're just going to keep it simple. And so go back to your code. Again, make sure that in your index.html you put that PhoneGap.js thing there. And now just select all of your files. One way you can do this is just click on one of them and do Control A. You hold down the Control button and press A at the same time. And then right click on any one of them and then say send to compressed zipped folder. Now, it's just going to go ahead and create one with the name of whichever file you happen to click on. In this case, let's go ahead and rename it to, let's just say temp tracker. Got it. Now, we can go back to, again, just scroll up to the top and click on apps. That'll take you back to that page where you can upload a zip file. Click on that button, go to wherever you put your code, and now select that zip file that you just created. It'll go ahead and say, all right, we're uploading your file. And they say, well, you're not using the latest version of PhoneGap. That's okay. But notice that we can go ahead and change the name of our app here. So we'll say temp tracker, nifty little app that lets you avoid learning about how to do graphs. And have fun tracking the temperature at the same time. Whatever, you can give it whatever description that you want, and then just go ahead and say ready to build. Now, after you say ready to build, you can actually just go ahead and click on the blue text of the name of your app, and you'll see three things down here. One says iOS, and it says error. Then you'll see the little Windows icon, and in this case, it just came up with Zap. And then you'll see this Android, and right now it's spinning around, it says pending, and then once it's done, it'll say APK. So what this just did was it took our mobile website and it just turned it into an app for Android, an app for Windows, and it tried to turn it into app for iOS, but Apple does something very exclusive. They say you may not create apps unless you pay us $100 at least up front, maybe $100 a year. You can't even put them on your own phone unless you pay them that. So what we would have to do is you'd have to go to Apple, buy a developer license, and then add that key in here. You'd upload it, and then it would work. But a really neat thing is notice this this QR code up here. So what you can do is go ahead, if you have an Android phone. Do you have an Android phone? What you should do is, if you don't already have a QR code reader on your phone, oh, not that. Oh, although actually I should show you this site too. This is a pretty neat site. This site actually allows you to take screenshots of your app and then like plop them in professional photographs as if your app was on that phone. It's called placeit.net. It's a really neat site. But no, I wanted to go to Google Play. So on your Android phone, go to your Google Play Store, just look up QR reader if you don't already have one. And pretty much, I think just go with the first one that comes up. This QR code reader by Scan Inc. is a good one. And just go ahead and install that on your phone. Now, for those following along online, I'm going to go ahead and switch to video here so I can show you how it should look on your phone. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the, actually hang on here. I'm going to open up the QR code reader app on my phone. All right, so the way I'm going to have to do this, this isn't going to work. John, no, that's not going to work either. Because somehow I have to point my camera to the phone and have the camera be pointed at the computer. All right, never mind. What you should do is, let me go ahead and share my screen again. What you should do is go ahead and take your QR code scanner and go ahead and scan that QR code that you see there. You can scan mine if you'd like. And it's going to come up with a link. Go ahead and open that link in your browser. And it's going to ask you if you want to download the file. Go ahead and say, yep. Swipe down from the top of your phone to see the file that was downloaded. And it'll say, hey, here's all the permissions. You can say next, and then you can say install. Now, when you say install, your phone may come up and say your security settings block you from installing third-party apps. Is that what you're saying is, Betty? All right, so to fix that, let me say allow third-party apps on Android. Let me just pull up the steps here. Okay, go press the home button on your phone. Go to settings. Now, from there, if you have an old version of Android, you're going to be able to go to applications. If you have a new version of Android, you're going to go to security. So which version do you have? Do you see security? So then if you had applications, you're going to follow these steps. If you had security, you're going to follow these steps. Scroll down and check unknown sources box. Go ahead and check that. Tap OK when it shows the warning. And now go back and either, if you can go back to the downloaded file, go back and click on that. Otherwise, just go ahead and rescan the QR code. And again, for those online, feel free to scan the one right here. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit to make it a little easier to scan. Scan it, download it, open it, install it, and then hit open. And now it's on your phone, right? Now, if you click, now one issue, if you click view graph right now, you're going to see that nothing comes up. Now, the reason for this is because right now in our code, let's just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and delete that previous zip file because we're going to need to upload a new one to fix this. We got to open up the main.js file and go down to where we have get temps and post temp, and we need to actually now put the full URL of where those are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put http://www.treksoftware.org/mobile-crash-course/david/get-temps. And then you can copy all that and paste it in front of post temp as well. So I'm going to just leave this up for a while so you can just make sure you got the same thing. So yeah, just let me know when you've got that. Again, anybody online, please feel free to shoot me a question on the thing here, or if you've done that and I'm not answering it. Oh, sorry, I don't think I've had I haven't had the Q&A app open all this time. Yeah, feel free to that. Oh, hey Raj, glad you're here. Sorry, I haven't had that open all this time. That's probably what happened last week too. All right. All right. So now we're going to save this file. And instead of uploading it online now, we're just going to go ahead and again select all the files. You could also click one, press Control A, then right click on any one of them, send to zip folder. Again, we'll just call it temp tracker or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. Now go back to the website, and now what you're going to do is you're going to click this button that says update code. Choose a file. You know, pick that new folder that zip folder that we just created. Oops, cancel. Oh, okay, got to choose it again, and then say upload. You got it. So now it's just going to take a little bit of time to upload that file. It says your application has been updated and a build has been queued. So if we scroll down, we're going to again see the Windows and the Android spinning around. And whenever the Android is done spinning around, we'll scroll up and we'll scan the QR code again and just get a new version. And we've got 4 minutes. Yep. Scroll up here. Scan that code. And actually, let me go ahead and switch to video here to show what this looks like online. All right, so I'm opening the link in the browser, and you can't see it very well. Come on. There we go. It says download file. I'm going to say OK. I'm then going to swipe down from the top and open it. And then I'm going to say install. And then I'm going to open it. And there our app is on the phone. So now if I hit view graph, oh nice, you're gonna see a graph. Now there's some weird thing about this plugin that does the graph twice, and it does one like a little off from the other one. I don't know why that is. We could look into it and debug it, but for now, let's go ahead and now submit a new temperature. Let's just make it like 200 degrees just so that it'll be really clear that it was new point. I submitted it. I hit view graph. And actually, yeah, so apparently it has this plugin has a bug where it's not going to update. So just go ahead and you can exit out of the app by pressing the back button on your Android device. And then on your phone, you should see an icon for the app. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. I'm going to hit view graph. And there is that really high point that we just put in. Hey, angels. And now also, if we go to the website, I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to go to view graph. There is that super high point that I put in, and then you put in on your phone. So that's why there's 2 points there, right? So that's now we've got our app on our phone affecting the database, affecting the website, and this file too. And this is what we're going to get into next week. I'm going to show you, okay, now how do you take this and upload it to the Google App Store, and then if you want to get into a bit about that, how to customize it with the icon, and then you'll be ready to go on your own. So with that, yep, again, I'll send out the information for next week, and thanks to everybody who's attended and watched online. I'll see you next time.